Welcome to the Ascension of the Chessmen podcast. I am your host, Andre Mitty. Today's guest is an undergrad psychology student pursuing work in psychedelic therapy. Ladies and gentlemen, hobbits and fairies, give a warm welcome to Alex Vrana. Thanks for coming on, brother. Happy to have you.
Happy to be here, man. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, great to have you, man. And, we go way back and,
We do.
just re-catching up with you. I can't remember where it was. I think it was after my first ayahuasca retreat. And then we went to that Shane Moss show where he had Sophia Rockland with him talking
Yep.
ayahuasca here in Lincoln. And yeah, just hearing what you're studying now, I'm like, holy shit, man, that's amazing. So I had to sit down and have a conversation with you about this stuff. So looking forward
Yeah.
to this
Yeah. No problem. Yeah. Like I said,
for
it's
sure.
it's it's, it's something that I've finally kind of feel like I'm doing what I've always wanted to do, and I don't feel any pressure to speak about it openly with people. You have to kind of guard yourself a little bit when you're talking to kind of those really orthodox people from kind of
Yeah.
sheltered backgrounds or really conventional backgrounds of education or ideology or especially psychology. But to
Right.
have a friend like yourself with me, I can speak pretty freely about the passions that I have.
100%, man. And for every guest I have on, I start with this question, and so it goes something like this. So I guess for those who aren't familiar, can you explain what it is that you do and what woke you up to realizing maybe there's more to this life than you originally taught or thought?
Sure. I mean, I have a pretty odd background, but don't we all?
All
uh
right.
i I failed out of college out of Wayne State back in 2010. I actually had a very powerful experience where a friend of mine, we got pretty messed up on a few substances of alcohol and cannabis, and then we drove out to the middle of the country, and the car ended up breaking down, and we were stuck in the vehicle for over 16 hours, and a blizzard came in, and that was a
Wow.
pretty powerful experience because we were running out of fuel and we thought that we were going to die. So at the time,
Yikes.
we thought, are we staying in this vehicle to die or do we get out of it? And we ran across acres of farmland in the middle of, a northern Nebraska blizzard, and we made
Yeah.
it to a farmhouse and made it okay. But I almost lost my hands in the process. And so returning back to school, uh, I was on all kinds of painkillers and stuff like that. It just didn't do anything for me because the pain was so intense. And that
Mhm.
led to my kind of downfall. And I mean, it's a long story, I guess, in that sense, but I worked various odd end jobs. And eventually I kind of realized that I needed to go back to school to do the things that I wanted to do. Um, and right before I went to school, I actually got a DUI, which is one of the most powerful experiences of my life
Rough.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my dad didn't actually say much to me. He just said, Jesus fucking Christ, Alex. And those words alone still ring in my mind. But that's
Right.
all he said. He didn't lecture me. He didn't say, he didn't give me the movie plot of, what are you doing with your life, blah 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 blah. He got me a lawyer. I went on probation. I went back to school, and I went to Metropolitan Community College. Shout out to MCC Omaha, to where I am now an alumni. I graduated with honors, with my associate's degree in business. And
Oh
in
yeah.
between that time, I talked to a few of my friends, because you got to have friends you can speak to that know your good side and your dark side. Because any kind of mentor who's older than you is just going to kind of give you the run of the mill stuff. But my friends, especially, know me who I was in the past, a party goer, a live. Loud kind of guy who didn't have a lot of organization. So for me to come out of community college with those honors, they said, "Wow, you've really changed." And my friend Ryan
100%.
was saying, Alex, do you want to put all your money or all your eggs in one basket? Because I wanted to get my business degree to become a coffee farmer. And because
Mhm.
my mother's from Panama and everyone down there grows coffee already, but they're just not really organized. So my plan was to get that business ethic and education, go down there with kind of the American ingenuity or ideology, saying, this is how we can get organized, this is how I can make money. But he said, do you want to put all your eggs in one basket? Because the coffee business is volatile anyway. In fact, it snowed in Brazil last week, which killed
Mm.
off a lot of plantations, and that shot up the price of coffee, which could drop tomorrow by a few dollars, which is major implications. So
Right.
sorry, I got like a lot of thoughts going on. So hopefully I'm staying organized for everybody out there.
Oh, you're
Um,
good. You're
but
right on the path, brother.
oh well, yeah, we all get there in our own way, for
Oh
sure.
yeah.
But so after a few conversations, and I talked to my academic advisor at the University of Nebraska Lincoln, and she kind of laid everything out. And she said, Alex, the credits that you've taken and you've done good enough that a lot of this will transfer. You have a few more gen eds and you can jump right in psychology. And once I
Awesome.
started there, I just started understanding what I wanted to do. And in my own personal life, I'm not afraid to say that I've had a few psychedelic experiences, and
For sure.
those experiences have really shaped my view in terms of, did I have the experience of meeting God or meeting a sacred entity? Not really. It was so much of me taking LSD or psilocybin mushrooms and realizing how I'm so minute in my existence, but my existence is so powerful to me. And
100%.
with that combination of taking these experiences, or having them with friends of mine, and seeing and sharing just that kind of that sacred experience to an extent, because although we've taken them in settings which would be less than therapeutic or less than clinical, let's say music festivals or shows, um,
Right.
we still afterwards have taken integration and talked about our experiences. No one's really had a difficult experience that I've been with. Truly, things have gotten intense, sure.
Hmm.
In fact, a friend of mine, were out on his porch, and we believe we had an effect to where the distortion field was bending. So we
Hmm.
saw almost a cosmic ray wash over my friend. It then passed over me, and we paused for a minute without saying anything, and we both said at the same time, "Did you see that? Did you feel that?" Now, I don't know. It's a pretty rare thing to be on that same sequencing with two different minds in the same different setting on different chemicals.
Oh
So
yeah.
just those little things that I've seen, and then afterwards, what I try to bring home to people on substances like LSD, psilocybin, MDMA. I haven't done DMT or ayahuasca, anything that like that, so I can't speak to that. But it's the
Hmm.
afterglow you get afterwards. So I am
100%.
elated. I am empathetic after these experiences, and I try to tell people that it's not so much that in that 6 to 12 hours are you going to change your life indefinitely. No way. It's the afterward. It's
Yep.
pretty much you eat your food and then you let it digest, and then that way you really come to terms with what your experience was. And I guess to bring it back to your question directly, last year I had COVID pretty bad. I
Hmm.
had inflammation of the lungs. The inflammation got so bad that it made my left arm go numb one day, and I started like hyperventilating, thinking that I was having a cardiac arrest event or even a heart attack. I contacted my doctor. She informed me to just remain calm, which is great advice.
Right.
But I
Stop,
it
drop, and
was
roll.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, drink water, get enough sleep. Well, doctor, I've been
Yeah.
doing that. Um,
Right.
but luckily, I got out of that okay, and I took a trip out to Utah, to Arches National Park, to where I came upon a full moon, and
Mm.
in the middle of the park, I said, "Wow, it's bright for 8:30," and I look over and just see the huge moon come over the top. And at that same time, I took my shirt off. I started doing yoga. I played Alan Watts on my phone, and I
Mm.
just became so integrated with this experience of that whatever the virus was, or whatever it did to my body. I came out of it. I'm okay, and I'm going to live life as much as I can. And even today, reading the news, I become very kind of nihilistic or dismissive about the positivity in our worlds. But it's up to
Hmm.
me or ourselves to make this life what it is. So of course you can always be a
100%.
nihilist, and of course you can always poo-poo people and their experiences. And even my mother, who's a very strong Catholic, I can dismiss her, her prayers or her kind of constant nagging me for to go to church. Or I can realize my mother's still alive. My mother's not a drunk. She doesn't do drugs. She's works her butt off. She's given me this life. And although she's annoying, like everybody's mom is, I still got my mom, and she still loves the
Hmm.
hell out of me. And instead of me saying like this annoying broad, I should be a little bit more thankful. I'm not gonna grovel at her feet, because I'm a grown ass man for sure.
Yep.
But my mother's still with me, my dad's still with me. They're still married, for better for worse. But I'm just really thankful, and I think of the Run the Jewels song. Um, I can't think what the song is specifically right now, but gratitude. Gratitude is everything. You can't look.
Mm.
Yeah, it's never look back. is the song.
Right.
You can't look back. You can't look to the future. You have to live in the now. And as long as you are gracious about everything that you've received, everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, you can live a good life and you can be satisfied with who you are. And you can always get better.
100%. 100%, brother. Yeah, that was that was a lot to take
There's a
in there,
lot.
man. That
That ain't even everything.
that was good. That was good. That was good. So I guess you talked about originally thinking about business and starting a coffee farm and all that back in Panama. So I guess what shifted and what kind of got you interested in pursuing major in psychology? And I guess who were some of your biggest influence as far as psychologists go and why?
Sure. Well, like I said, my buddy Ryan, I won't drop his last name just to protect his own image or whatever. But he was a farmer himself, and
Mhm.
he kind of told me just about the volatility of even up here in the States, the problem with topsoil, whether or not you
Oh
believe in
yeah.
climate change. Well, if anyone's going to be more cynical about of climate change, it's conservative farmers here in Nebraska, and they know what's coming. And it's just you can't keep he's gonna be mad at me for ruining these words. You can't just keep trudging or destroying the topsoil and not
Yeah.
replenishing it without there
Yep.
having grave consequences. Because back in the day, you would have bison or buffalo who would, eat all those crops, then defecate on the land, and then that would fertilize. And naturally, you would just have a lot more balance, as opposed to us just using our machines to just destroying the topsoil and just kind of reusing it. And we're kind of seeing lower and lower yields because of that
Oh
system
yeah.
in place
It's
and the
terrible.
climate. Oh yeah, and then just think about now about these farmers in Latin America, South America, who are barely making ends meet. A lot of these farmers down there are growing rice or growing wheat or growing coffee to sustain themselves. And the little bit extra they have is to make profit. My uncles, my mother is one of eight siblings. My uncles work for about $10 a day in sugarcane fields. So
Mm,
that means they're wearing rubber boots, bandanas, and machetes. And I mean, they come back at lunch and they've been working all day to
right.
achieve just a little bit of life. And hindsight's always 2020, but me going up there with my Nike shoes, my iPhone, whatever, my headphones,
Right.
I look at them and they seem a little bit happier. They're not
100%, dude.
watching TV all day. They're not worried. I mean, there's bills to be paid, yes, but they're not in student loan debt. So it's all relative. So
Right.
with that question in mind, I said I could go down there and I'm sure I could do it well because I've always been confident enough to know I could do whatever I wanted to, just because
Yeah.
I've always had that confidence in myself. I've had great parents. Um, and my ability to communicate with others has been good, even if there was a language barrier. So my influencers basically got started back in 2014 when I did start listening to Alan Watts, Terrence McKenna, who always reminded
Oh
me
yeah.
of you in a way. I don't know why that you give off that aura, and I always thought that was funny. Whenever I
He was
talk
one
to
of
you,
my biggest influences too, brother.
I
So
feel like you
might make
channel
sense.
you channel him in a way, and when I sit down and talk to you, I have a reference, Andre,
Mhm.
especially
Thank you.
the way you
That
carry
means a
yourself.
lot, man. That's
No,
truly an honor to be
no.
compared to someone like Terrence, man, who I hold in very high regard. So
What?
thank you for
What?
that.
Oh, no
It's an honor.
problem. And I mean, even now, I mean, it might be cynical in a way, and your ego's ever present. But I think it's kind of up to men like us, or people of our age, to take up that
Mhm.
mantle for the next 20 years to be like those men who were so diligent in spreading their message, in their late 50s to late 60s. Because there, although it's a lot more broad now, I'm sure that there's a lot more people who might be taking advantage of people,
Oh yeah.
fake shamans, the whole kind of wishy-washy movement of some spirituality, and kind of these gurus and stuff who take you on their island and you're sipping, $1,000 gin, and you're getting
Right.
spirituality that way. Maybe you get it that way. I shouldn't poo-poo that because I haven't ever done it. And
Right.
by any means, anybody listening, please invite me. I'd love to go there.
Right.
But I don't know if that's the same thing happening there. So Watts, McKenna, Ram Dass, who I actually quoted in my best man speech at my friend's wedding, all those
Beautiful.
men, sadly, I would love there to be more women, and if there's more people who could spread information with me about historical women who have had,
Marina Sabina.
Marina Sabrina. Okay, yeah, I
Yeah, yeah. She's a well-known psilocybin shaman that passed away I forget when she passed, but yeah, she's really well known as far as indigenous medicine woman. She was down in Mexico serving
Oh wow.
psilocybin and really got the ball rolling on that. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I certainly open myself up to more avenues, and I definitely, even in my own life, surrounded myself with people that are way smarter than me. So any
Hmm.
kind of
For sure.
that's the amazing thing about the internet today is the Library of Alexandria may have burned down, but everybody's got a phone that makes
Oh
them
yeah.
10 times smarter than Aristotle. Even Einstein didn't have a device like this to where you could
Right.
have so much knowledge in a flash. So you're only limiting yourself. So if you want to spend all your time on Twitter and Instagram and wonder why you're bored, that's kind of why you're bored.
Yep.
But those influences slowly made me realize that I could do so much more than just be a business guy. My
Hmm.
father had a business and he gave his heart and soul into it and it failed, and he didn't have much left. He had to go back to the job that he worked at for 10 years, and they graciously took him back. But although he never let me know about how that failure felt, I saw it firsthand, and that's what scared me. And that's why I said, and harkening back to my buddy Ryan telling me, don't put all your eggs in one basket, Alex. Become very diverse,
Yes.
be fluid, be plastic, be able to move in other directions, and pull all your strengths and use them in different ways. So yeah, a combination of all those things. And I've just had wonderful teachers. It was so funny how in middle school and elementary school and high school, I've all had female teachers, which really influenced me. And then now
Mhm.
that same thing appears in college. And I've had a few male teachers that have been great, yes. But I work in the conflict culture and law lab at UNL as a research assistant. I'm a volunteer, I don't get paid. But I work there still.
Yeah.
Ashley Votruba has been nothing but great things to me. A few other professors that I can't remember the names right now have all been good. And I approached them because before, as I said earlier about speaking freely about the benefits of psilocybin, LSD, MDMA, um, I've approached these people very cautiously because, as you know, people start assuming you have agendas. Why do you want
Hmm.
to talk? Why are you talking about something that's so far fetched that doesn't have a lot of research? And I was so thankful to see these people say, you know what, I don't know a lot about that. I need to research that, as opposed to saying,
Mm.
I don't know about that. We might want to stay away
Yeah.
from that. Or
Yeah. Let's not get into that. Or yeah. Yeah. I know
no,
what you mean.
just a
Totally.
great, but that's what's so surprising. And maybe they've done their own research, or maybe they have their own experiences that they're afraid to talk about. And because they're so
Hmm.
well established as an academic, they can't speak about their experiences, as you
Yep.
know as well. You know,
For sure.
it's one thing to talk about the research, but if you become a part of the research, then you tread on the lines of, let's say, Timothy Leary,
Yeah.
the Harvard professor that had all the credentials but didn't get the permission to run those experiments, ran them anyway, and by all means had pretty good, and for all the listeners out there, quotation marks, pretty good results.
Yeah.
Um, they've been dismissed because he didn't control for a lot of things. He didn't do it the right procedural ways. So now we're seeing the results of that, of just now being able to research these kind of substances and seeing them become mainstream. When Gwyneth Paltrow talks about
Yeah.
her ayahuasca experience, that's, and a lot of people say like, oh my gosh, it's getting into the hands of the celebrities. Well, just wait a minute. That means that middle-aged housewives or anyone who's reading People magazine or is watching The View or a daytime television, they now have access to this. So it's not just High Times or podcasts that have this grip hold on these subjects. They're becoming mainstream, which I think is actually beneficial. Now, it's up to people like us to follow up with those people and make sure that it isn't twisted or manipulated in any kind of way, because people do still take these substances and have bad experiences or sadly fatal experiences. So by all means, I'm open to it and I do see the benefits of it, but I do not tell people to take them at music festivals or do it in a setting where you didn't tell your parents or you didn't tell your wife that you're taking the substance, and now you have to deal with it, and now you
Right.
understand why you're seeing demons in the walls and dragons, because that's your fears coming to fruition.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's no skeletons. You can't hide in the closet once you're on these substances. And you brought up Terrence McKenna earlier, and I brought a book with me to show you in this one. I still haven't read it, but
Oh
Carl
wow.
Jung is one of my favorite psychologists, and this one's called
Hmm.
Psychology and Alchemy by Carl Jung. which Dennis and Terrence actually recommended reading before you even have a psychedelic experience,
Oh
because they
wow.
say it's like a roadmap to the experience, which connects psychology to the psychedelic experience, because you are, seeing your thought processes and, your traumas, and you're just
Yes.
revealing your shadow self, as Carl Jung would put it. You're
Hmm.
facing yourself in the mirror, in a sense. And um,
Right.
something else you brought up there, like how it's becoming more mainstream. And I just read like Megan Fox and Machine Gun Kelly just went down and did
Yes.
ayahuasca, which,
Hmm.
man, at the same time, like I'm kind of on the fence, as far as like, because I see like the capitalism and the commercialization of sacred
Hmm.
shamanistic practices, which are very
Right.
sacred and traditional to indigenous people. And
Hmm.
I think we have to hold that in high regard. But we have to find some sort of bridge to build between the cultures, you know what I mean, from the
Oh,
east to the
absolutely.
west and so on. And so there's that phrase, like any publicity is good publicity. So like the more I
Hmm.
see psychedelics in the news in any way, shape, or form, like it's getting in front of people's faces, and I think that's a
Sure.
good thing. Whether it's someone jumping off a building because he took some acid, like they would say back in
Hmm.
the day, to keep
Hmm.
everyone away from it. It still had people questioning, like, LSD, what is this? Or, like
Right.
they would have to like look for themselves to see, well, if this is making someone jump out of a building, maybe I should figure out why he would jump out of a building, or what he took that made him do
Exactly.
that. And
Hmm.
then it would lead them to maybe some good experiences people had, just to like open that doorway, because
Hmm.
otherwise they might not see it. So maybe Megan
Exactly.
Fox saying, she had to face her demons, um, taking ayahuasca, maybe is a good thing. And so I see the good and bad there. And
Sure.
I think, like I said, I think there just needs to be a bridge that needs to be built. And we got to figure out ways to do that in any way possible. And just, I feel like we're at a coming of age moment. And, I think I remember, graduating high school back in 2011,
Hmm.
and I had a buddy, Nathan Bruce at the time. Shout out to Bruce,
Hmm.
uh, a
Chris.
good childhood
Yep.
buddy.
Hmm.
And we watched a documentary called "The Union: The Business Behind Getting High," which I've referenced many times in this podcast and on my journey to kind of my opinions and my awareness of the world and the world around me, and kind of waking me up to like how much we had been lied to about cannabis and hemp.
Oh, sure.
And, I remember telling him way back then, I was like, within 10 years, cannabis will be legal everywhere. That's my prediction.
Hmm.
And within 2 years, it was legal in 2 states. And that blew my mind. I was like, well, like the bar has been, raised like a little higher, and, we're getting farther along than I thought. And yeah, we still have a ways to go, but
Sure.
just last year, seeing psychedelic mushroom therapy legalized in Oregon, like that was
Mhm.
huge, man.
Yes.
And then hearing about Soul Quest, the Church of Mother Earth, ayahuasca church down in Florida. And there's
Hmm.
another legally operating church in New Mexico called Santo Daime Church. And they won the religious freedom lawsuit, or
Right.
court case in Supreme Court to legally operate, which Soul Quest is still going through the courts as far as being a legally operating church, which that is a mess in and of itself. But, where it all stems from was, Nixon's war on drugs and the
Oh, yes.
reclassification of all these substances. And, to bring up a point, I took a list of, the Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 supplement or substances here. So we
Hmm.
got in Schedule 1, we got LSD, cannabis, psilocybin, ecstasy, MDMA, peyote, DMT, and ayahuasca, among others. And then in
Hmm.
Schedule 2, we got fentanyl, meth, cocaine, oxycodone, Adderall, Ritalin, and Vicodin.
Hmm.
And for those who don't know, Schedule 1 drugs have no medical value and a high potential for abuse, whereas Schedule 2 to 5 have some medical value and still have potential for abuse. So just looking at that rationally and logically, like that never made sense to me, like especially after watching that documentary.
Oh, sure.
And I think it says like why we're in this position and what got us here, and
Oh, yeah.
how that's slowly changing. And those are just my thoughts, and I kind of rambled there for a bit, but I'll open it back up to you, brother.
Oh no, I think we both take turns rambling.
Yeah, yeah.
Isn't that what a podcast is?
It's a podcast, yeah.
Right. But no, you're absolutely right. Anytime that you have a substance which expands conscious, and that was the biggest thing that got me into it. Back in around that 2014, my dad actually had a Timothy Leary book titled LSD,
Mm,
where they took it's a very hard book to read if you're not of the scientific mind, and
right.
so it broke down the chemical structures, the results of it, and that book is what kind of really kind of pushed me into it, because and I had never heard of conscious expansion before.
Mhm.
I thought, because I used to hold intelligence in such high regard, I said if I'm smart enough, I should be able to do anything. And then I found out through my experiences with MDMA that empathy is equally, if not more important to the existence of humanity, because I
Oh yeah.
there's there's something that I talk about, especially you'll know mucho hablar español. I don't speak a lot of Spanish, which is sad because I'm
Mhm.
Panamanian. But it's such a powerful experience for me to be down there and be the smartest man in the room, the most educated person, and still not be able to talk to people. So what good
Yeah.
is my intelligence when I can't communicate with these people? But my willingness to eat whatever was given to me, take the bucket showers, ride the horses, work the land as much as I could. That empathy helped build bridges greater than just my ability to problem solve, or try to teach them English as much as I could. They saw me break down my own barriers, my own prejudices, and become integrated into their society. Now, of course, that's easy because it's my family. So every time I get a slap on the back, yo, primo, hey, cousin, that kind of stuff. But those little instances made me aware of just what the experience of life is. And Andre, you talk about this conscious expansion, watching these documentaries. Fantastic Fungi just came out on Netflix, which is
Yes.
the Paul Stamets documentary. And that
Oh
alone,
yeah.
even if you're the most hardcore skeptic, just you we talk so much about um people being divided. I think people have a lack of critical thinking. And that
Hmm.
means to look at both sides of the argument. And especially, every day you come across it with the COVID situation, to which, I look at both sides. I have people who are
Right.
doing a lot more research than me. You just start to think critically, like, wait a minute. Why is cannabis on this and methamphetamine on this side?
Yeah.
Just and I don't think and like I said, people will look at us and say, well, these men have agendas, they've obviously used this substance and they want everybody's kids to do it. Well, no, Jack, I don't. But I did a little bit of research. Hell, I used Google, the most generic browser you can use, and I was able to
Right.
find information on the drug war, the effects of it, who is impacted. And the hardest thing that I come to the conclusion is, if you're a capitalist, why do you want these substances illegal? Why don't you want to market them, regulate them, bring them to the public? Because if you already have the alcohol market, think about if you had the cannabis market. And I don't want it, and I do not want it to be in that same realm. But
Right.
like you said, how am I going to build bridges with people? How am I
Hmm.
going to get them to think that they've come up with their own idea to say this is a good idea? I have to put it in their terms. So by all means, do I want there to be labor unions and people working for $10 a day in the hemp fields of Nebraska? No, but it's those small steps that we can take to build a better world, because so
Right.
many people have this savior complex, which is great. And what I mean by that is, I want to help my family in Panama. I want to help people in Sudan. I want to help people in Venezuela. Sure. But if I am not helping the people in my own ecosystem, for example, the homeless people here in
Yep.
my small hometown, well, it doesn't really matter if I'm sending blank checks to Rwanda or blank checks to North Korea, to those people trapped there. focus on your own ecosystem first, and then hopefully you can bring that goodness to other people and it spreads. Because otherwise, you're just kind of like blowing a dandelion into the wind and
Right.
hoping that those seeds land and they start growing somewhere. So you have to be kind of goal oriented. You have to have direction. And I think, goals only remain dreams without organization. If you have
Right.
organization, if you have ways to achieve those dreams, then they become goals.
100%, man. And you touched earlier on oh, how did you say it? I can't think of how you said it, but it was like the experience itself, the 6 to 8 hours or whatever of the
Hmm.
psychedelic experience, that is not going to change your life.
No.
But the way I see it is okay, because for many years, man, I was using these substances irresponsibly, not with the right intentions, the
Hmm.
the right use, the right set and setting, all the
Hmm.
stuff that plays a role in
Sure.
using these things in a sacred way, I would say, or just the right way, however you want to word that. But
Hmm. Sure.
um, I learned about this word integration, and
Hmm.
integration is the most important part of any psychedelic experience,
Right.
because you are shown a world you didn't even know existed
Hmm.
until you take these things and you say, wow, I don't know shit. I
Hmm.
don't know, there's so much I don't know,
Right.
and it just opened your whole world up. And,
Hmm.
to come back to the monotonous day to day life and
Hmm.
the way things used to be before you had this experience, you can't just go back to how life
No.
used to be. Like, this is life changing perspectives. Like, it's going to change your perspective on the world, yourself, how you
Yep.
see other people. I like to say I see everyone as a reflection of myself, and I treat them how they would want to, or how I would want to be treated.
Hmm.
That's the whole goal of my podcast, is building bridges and rising above our differences, and seeing where we have commonalities and what we can agree on, agreeing to disagree when it's needed. Like, how can we just have a conversation without, oh, you're this, or you're that, like, and I can't talk about that, or so we're just going to stop the conversation there. It's like, what is that? Like, that's not
Right.
evolving. That's not, becoming better human beings, or like living up to our true potential. Like, we can't just
Right.
write people off. Like, we got to
No.
rise above any differences we have, and just see what we have in common, where we can agree, like where can we push the conversation to, like, see that there's so much we do have in common, and so much we can discuss, that we can grow from and learn. And there's so much to be found in that. And I just think this experience is so essential to everyone's life. Like Terence McKenna would say, it's our birthright. It's like the experience of having sex or having a child, or it's like a pivotal experience you need to have. And the people that have had these experiences, they put it in their top 5 experiences they've had in their life, right up there with you know visiting one place in the world they've always wanted to visit, or getting married, or
Hmm.
these crucial life events that take place in the very short time we're here. Life
Right.
is too short to take these things for granted. And I feel like, without experiencing those experiences, to say, like, no, we can't have that, or no, that's just some woo woo stuff, or that's taboo,
Hmm.
we can't talk about that. It's like, well, maybe you can't, but to say other people can, or other people shouldn't take part in these medicines, is just asinine. And that's
Right.
very close-minded belief with anything.
Exactly.
I'm all about do no harm and take no shit, and
Right.
live and let live, no
Hmm.
matter what people are doing, as long as they're not harming other humans. Like,
No.
let them freely exist, and you shall freely exist too. Like, we just have to get past all these differences like we have in our world today. Like, we see the news, we look around and politics and everything going on, man. It's like we are so divided. Like, people pushing family members out of their families because of who they
Right.
voted for or how they feel on this virus that's
Mhm.
currently affecting us all. Like, we're
Right.
all being affected by this. So
Mhm.
can't we just like, okay, we might not agree on where it came from or what it is or
Mhm.
whatever, but can we agree on something?
Right.
Can we agree that we're still family? Can we agree
Right.
that we're of the same blood? Can we agree that we're both human? Like,
Right. I
can we
shouldn't have
find some
to
commonalities?
I shouldn't have to trade it off. I shouldn't have to be
Right.
I shouldn't be entitled to my own opinion, which means that, well, because we're not of the same opinion, that I'm just, the conversation stops there. So I'm going to
Right.
I'm not going to talk to you anymore. I'm going to block you on various social media platforms. And now, I've had that in
Cancel
my own
culture.
well, I've had it in my own family be like, well, we got to make sure we don't lose you like we lost, our cousin. Well, he's not dead. You guys just quit talking to him because you guys couldn't agree about
Oh
stuff.
my God.
And you're about to lose me because your unwillingness
Mm,
to let go of your own biases. Because I don't,
right.
if it came down to it, if me and you disagreed about anything, I would eventually
Right.
be like, Andre, like, I don't want to talk about that. And we could come to
Right.
terms, and we would go have a beer or a smoke and it'd be fine, you know?
Right.
Or I think we're of the people, just get over it. I don't have enough time to be so judgmental. Like, I don't care. Like,
Right.
I need to experience life and the joyous things while I can still walk, because eventually we will be old and we
Yeah.
won't be able to drive. We won't be able to go on hikes. And hopefully, if you eat right, you drink your water, you can do that till you're 90. But
Yeah.
not everybody will. So you won't
Hmm.
be able to go see childhood friends, or if you do, they're going to be in a lot worse shape. You're going to see, hopefully, hopefully not, but Bruce, he might be stuck in a home, and he
Hmm.
might be suffering from dementia, and you might not be able to say, hey, remember when we were 35 and you didn't think that cannabis should be legalized and we quit talking to each other? I'm sorry for that. You'll be too late.
Right.
And
Yeah.
what a waste of experiences that you've missed on, and joyous occasions or laughs, because
100%.
of something so petty as a political issue.
Right.
Why it just
100%.
doesn't seem worth it to me. And
And
that's the
oh, keep going. Keep going.
I was just going to say, and that's the biggest thing that I've come to realize with conscious expansion, is there needs to be, and I know this is going to sound kind of woo woo, as we were alluding to, there needs to
Hmm.
be a global conscious change. And
100%.
one of the biggest thing that I talked about, to, I did another podcast with my buddy Will, is I said, this audience wheel, I can't change the people who are all against me, and no matter what. I need to get those people in the middle ground, and just said, hey, I found an
Hmm.
interesting article, I have an interesting study, just check it out, tell me what you think. And they come back to you, say, hey, I read that, like, do you have any more information? Sure, just check it out. And then that's how you build these conversations. But that's what needs to change, because
Yeah.
so much of it is, how do I make money off of something? Because I'm
Hmm.
coming into, even in the psychedelic community, psychedelic investing. How can we get donors, and how can
Yeah.
we get um, loaners to give us money to get our projects? And anytime you take somebody's money, it's not for free, and they're
Mm,
expecting to get something out of that.
right.
And the biggest thing you may have heard, when it comes to artists or people who are kind of, I hate to say this, fringe, but people who are creative, so film directors, painters, artists, manufacturers, oh, that's really cool trade that you do, or I love your art piece, but how are you gonna make money from it? And that is one of the most damning things you can say to somebody. I have passion for something. I wake up every morning and I'm elated to do something, but in the back of my mind, well, you only made $400 this month. Like, geez, man, isn't that just a kick in the pants? Like,
Right.
I'm
Right.
passionate about something. I'm giving cleaning or hygiene products to homeless, and sure, I'm spending my own money, but to see the smiles on those folks' faces that have nothing, that
Oh
means so
yeah.
much to me, more than a $10,000 paycheck. Like,
100%,
and
man.
I know a lot of people are going to say, well, wow, look at this guy. He probably gives, money to all the charities and stuff. I don't have no money, man. I'm in
Right.
student financial debt. And
You're
I
doing what
chose
you
to,
can,
and I
and
chose
that's
to
what
do that.
matters.
Exactly. And that's what I said to before about helping my ecosystem. We got a guy who comes, I
Yeah.
work at a local coffee shop, and he comes in, we give him free coffee. he doesn't, he doesn't pay. It doesn't matter. That little thing probably gets him through the day. I bought him a bike lock. I don't really, I didn't even, a lot of things I do, I don't like telling people because I don't want
Right.
them to be like, he's telling me because he wants to feel good. No, I just did it. It doesn't
Right.
matter if,
Yep.
if you tell me I did good, it matters how I feel and it matters who I helped. And a lot of people will say, well, if you share it, maybe other people will do it. Maybe, or maybe not. Maybe they'll just be like, I don't need to do anything because he's doing it. A friend of mine works for the conservation of Nebraska, and he had a lake cleanup out at Fremont Lakes, and he advertised it, pretty minimally, and he just said it was so great to see everybody who had kayaks to walking around the lake. Everyone had smiles on their faces. Now, of course, they were upset because of all the trash around the lake, but
Hmm.
it's that community that you build. People who
Yeah.
normally may be kind of scared or socially not as strong as others to communicate have opportunities now. So there needs to be that global shift, just slight turn to the west or the east of
Yes.
let's become more than just money makers and profiteers.
Oh yeah.
Let's become greater because, as you said, think about Aristotle and Plato. They would be in those amphitheaters, probably drinking wine or mutton or whatever the hell they had back then, and they would
Right.
hash out ideas of life, of understanding what
Yes.
everything is about. What exists like that now in the public
Right.
forum besides a podcast? And I mean, of course, but if you're very limited, either economically or technologically, how are you ever going to hear this podcast? If not, you need to go to a local park and just kind of scream into the sky, or have people come around you and talk about these ideas. And that's where
Yeah.
you hit the nail on the head about treating these substances with respect, because those ancestors in Mexico or the Native Americans or even the Nordics,
Right.
they hold these items as powerful experiences to which they build culture instead of profiting from it. Because none of those people, at least to my knowledge, no one is going to really sell you peyote. No one's really going to sell you ayahuasca unless
Right.
they're of not the right property or the right mind. They're going to give it to you, and you're going to experience it for how it really should be, and it's going
Hmm.
to change your consciousness and make you aware of the human experience.
Right. It's not like here's a buck, give me a cup of ayahuasca. It's like, no,
No.
you're buying a whole experience, like the
Right.
integrated process afterwards, like, holding space for you through the experience, the ayahuasqueros that are singing the songs throughout the experience. Like, there's underground ayahuasca churches or
Oh,
communities
sure.
that will play
Hmm.
an iPod throughout the experience too. And that's something totally different. And not to say that's wrong, but
No.
like, like just give it the respect it deserves,
Yes.
come with it with respect and with pure intentions, and know what you're getting yourself into. Do the research before you jump into something like this. It's like you're not going to buy a car before you've like read the read the blue book, read the
Hmm.
checked out the VIN numbers, see who's drove it in the past. Does it have a um, has the oil been changed regularly? Like,
Hmm.
has it been totaled out before? And like all these things play a role. Like, understand the experience you're about to take part in. You don't go in blindfolded and like, oh, I'm just gonna try it like it's a new beer. It's
Right.
like that's not that is something completely different. Like,
No.
this is a medicine, and like a teacher. Like, I, I like the terms plant teachers and plant medicines,
Hmm.
because you're I see the experience from my eyes and my experiences as like you're getting a cheat sheet for your life, but
Hmm.
life itself is a test. You still got to
Right.
take the test. You still got to study for the test. You still got
Hmm.
to critically think as you're reading every question on the test, like as if they're daily experiences. Like, new
Hmm.
insights will arise in every experience, and you'll think, oh well, I did it this way in the past, like maybe I should try it this way this time. Like,
Hmm.
just different understandings and learning from past mistakes, and all that stuff plays a role, man. And like, it's not like you don't have to take the test anymore because you got the cheat sheet. Like, no,
Right.
you still got to take the test.
Right. And
Like,
there's a
life still
high
goes on.
and there's a high failure rate. So even
Right.
people who have done well have failed at some point of this
Oh yeah.
test. And
Exactly.
even more so, you'll get the test and then you'll find out the lesson. Like,
Right.
oh, all those times that I drove drunk was fine until the police got me. And then I
Yeah.
was like, oh, this is what really happens. Or,
100%. A
or
wake up call.
or you cheat on your significant other and you realize, wow, that was horrible. And then it happens to you in an example, like that's how that
Yeah.
feels. Yeah, that is how it
Yeah.
feels. It's horrible. Like, and it's
Oh
so
yeah.
sad. And me, I'm getting old now. I just turned 29 this year. I work with a lot of younger people, and I try so hard to give them my advice, and I know what they're thinking. They're thinking how I used to think.
Right.
That person's old. They don't know what it's like to be me. This is a different age.
Yeah.
I'm smarter than them. So many times I believe you have to fall into the mud before you know which path to take, even if
Oh yeah.
there is somebody to guide you. We are so just egotistical and so stubborn. Like,
Yes.
I know so many other people have failed, but I'm different. And you are different. Everyone is their wonderful individual self. But
Yeah.
that still means that all those other people who are even smarter than you or dumber than you, whatever that means, have
Right.
failed. So
Yeah.
what makes you think that you are going to skate across that lake without there being any thin ice? What makes you think you can
Yeah.
cross that great bridge without falling? Just gratitude, humility, all those things that come from so many different religions and different backgrounds and cultures. There's a reason why those themes are constant. It's because they really matter and they are consistent.
100%.
Because as I said earlier, from the Native Americans to the Aztecs to the Mayans to the Nordic people to the indigenous people in China and Asia, honor, discipline, respect, love, they're all consistent, you know. If you
100%.
can if you can if you can master whatever that means to master those ideologies, you're going to do pretty well, regardless
Hmm.
of the people you run into or the ideologies that you fall into. As long as you
Right.
can stay consistent and stay honest with yourself, you should be all right. But like I said, you're still probably going to fuck up.
Right. Hey man, you live and learn. And
Yeah,
until you learn, you're gonna keep living and learning and
right.
making those mistakes until if you finally get it. You
Hmm.
gotta snap out of that stubbornness and have some humility, have some empathy. You realize, the way you treat other people is a reflection of how you're treating yourself and how you feel
Right.
about yourself, your own insecurities. And that's why I think like these things are so important. Like these
Hmm.
open up the doorways to like seeing life through a different lens of like, oh, like everything I do in the world, positive or negative, has an effect. Like it's like a ripple
Yes.
effect.
Hmm.
And like, if I continue to do crap to other people, like it's going to come back to me. Like, sooner or later, that's shit's going to hit the fan in my life. And like, oh, I'm going to be like, oh, this is what it feels like to get treated like crap when I was
Right.
doing that to other people for
Hmm.
years. And, you know, this has been such a great conversation. So I guess you kind of alluded to this earlier, but do psychedelics come up a lot more in psychology classes at the university these days, would you say, from your experience?
Not unless I'm bringing them up.
Really?
I had a
It's
book.
still that bad. Yeah.
I want to keep. I should have had it. It was written by two. I don't want to poo-poo on any type of people, but they were two well-educated white guys, which is all psychology's been for the last ever.
Right.
Besides a few notable folks. But dangers of hallucinogens. Are there any therapeutic properties possibly which need to be explored further? But there's a lot of scare tactics. Just a
Right.
commonality of the drug war preferences and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
but like I said, just because they're not there now does not mean that somebody like myself or anyone else who's out there can't bring that attention to their professors. And who knows, maybe those short conversations that I've had with my professors, maybe I was able to just kind of blow a little wind into their sails. And maybe they
Yes.
took out a book, maybe they watched a YouTube video and said, you know what, I'm going to study this further. And maybe I'm going to make a lecture about this.
Mhm.
So just do what you can. You don't have to chop down the whole tree by tomorrow, but slowly, that Bob
Yep.
Marley song, if you are a big tree, we have a small axe. And slowly, slowly, diligently, every day, believe what you know is right, and you will continue to make those small differences, because likewise, you don't know about all the bad things that you've done to people, those small ripple effects. You don't know about all the good effects you've done either. Like,
Right.
there we might have given a homeless person money, and maybe our little words about just saying, like, you can do a lot better, maybe that stayed in the back of their mind, and maybe they got a job, maybe they got cleaned up. We'll never know either
Oh yeah.
way. Maybe our karma will come in this life, or the next, whatever you believe in. um,
Hmm.
but just keep going. And the biggest thing I wanted to touch on, Andre, was the experiences that I've had on psychedelics made me realize that one of the biggest themes that is talked about is ego death. I'm going to destroy this ego of mine, and I am going to be a totally different person. No, you're not. And
Right.
what's so important is what I like to call ego convergence. So,
Yeah.
for example, I think last month in June, I volunteered at the suicide awareness booth, which is a cause that I'm
Mm,
very
beautiful.
strong for, as I struggle with my own suicidality, and I've gotten my help, and one doesn't really get over that, but
Right.
me being so able to speak about it is enough to show that I've certainly become better about it, and just aware of my own emotions and
100%.
feelings. But I was able to. It was powerful because it it was one thing to kind of say, like, here, take a card, you're not alone. But to see some of these folks with just marks down their arms, on their legs, of self-harm wounds and stuff, that was really eye-opening to me, because I've come from a great background with great friends, and even I struggle with this, so I can only imagine. And it was at the Pride Parade, so these are gay, queer folks, transgender people who have suffered much more than I ever will, probably. And so, when I talk about why I talk about that in congruence with ego convergence, is I used to be this guy. I could sell you anything. I could sell you a pen. I could be Jordan Belfort. I could do anything. I could talk to anybody. I could do whatever I wanted. And I thought I needed to destroy that person who was so egotistical, so narcissistic, so sarcastic. I could talk to women real easily. I could do all kinds of things. But instead, what I decided to do is, I'm going to take this guy who is this go getter, this salesman, and I'm going to go up to people like, hey, man, come here. How are you doing today? Have you ever struggled with this? Take a card for your friend. Use that person who was trying to manipulate people and sell them something, and change and use those same strengths and become somebody who has an open hand. And now I'm
Mm,
not just a salesman. I still have this great, magnanimous, bombastic personality, but now I'm using it to be kind to others. Now I'm
right.
showing people that even somebody as, joyful and eccentric as myself, I struggle with these things as well. And you are not alone. I'm with you. Text this hotline, do whatever you can, wave that, flag, be prideful, but be a good person. Be happy with who
Right.
you are, but extend love to other people. And that's the biggest thing that I take from my experiences, and what I really want to hammer home to people who are possibly looking at psilocybin, MDMA, LSD, ayahuasca for therapeutic reasons.
Mhm.
Don't destroy that old person. Mold them. Speak with your
Yes.
old self. Why was I like that? What do we want to become? And
Right.
people will say, like, wow, talking to yourself, what do you mean? Like, there's a lot of people inside you at a time, but at any given
Hmm.
moment, a different person shows up. There's the person you are with your loved one, the person you are with your friends, your church, your beer drinkers at the bar, your arcade
Oh
people.
yeah.
You change a lot. Nobody's really consistent. But
Oh
as
yeah.
long as you can kind of stay consistent and become this person who is filled with love, empathy, and all those things that we talked about earlier, you can have a wonderful experience and continue to have wonderful experiences, and still receive the same message of, I'm doing all right. I'm becoming a better person every single day till the day that I, disappear into the ether.
I love that, brother. I love that. And I completely agree. There's a misconception like, yeah, if you have this reaching the mountaintops on psilocybin or any psychedelic and you kill that ego. It's like, no, you
No.
still got to live with your ego. You got to tame that sucker and,
Hmm.
use it. It's a tool. Use it
Absolutely.
to, benefit others and, be loving with it.
Right.
Um, it's a fragile character. And,
Yes.
Carl Jung talked a lot about the shadow, and,
Mhm.
shadow work is, like when you feel triggered by someone, you know, you're catching something in them that you used to do, or something that
Right.
irritates you that is still alive in you. And if you're getting triggered by that still, that thing that annoys you about them is still very much alive in you. And that's
Yes.
something you have to work on. So I see everyone as not only a teacher, but a student. Like we're all switching roles like constantly. Like, are you a teacher right now, or are you a student? Like we all can play those roles. Like just in this conversation, like I'm sure we've switched hats of student and teacher many times, like
Sure.
just back and forth, and like learning new things from each other. Whereas like if I disagreed with you about this, I can't just run away like you took my toy like a little kid. Like no, like we're
No.
still hanging out, we can still play a different game. Like
Mhm.
there's so much to be grateful for, and embrace about life. Like life is too short to you know um be upset with people or hold grudges. Like and that's what I've learned, man, is like not only are we all one, and like everything has life in it and beauty in it, and you know there's so much more that we have to offer than like this monotonous, dry, short talk conversations. Like how's the weather today? Like
Oh my
how about
God.
like how have you been like dealing with all the shit going on in your life? Or like what's
Yeah.
holding you back right now? Or like let's open up a little bit, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
get to know people more, like
Mhm.
get below the surface level,
Right. And I think that's so hard in to to go on the same topic but a little bit different is like dating. In these dating
Yeah,
apps, I
yeah,
feel I feel like I'm pulling teeth to talk to people. And
yeah.
because you don't want to scare them off, you don't want to, well, what do you think about our existence? Whoa. How about,
Right.
do you want to get a coffee or something? I'd love
Let
to
me
do
dip
that,
my
but
toes in first.
right, yeah, right. No, you shouldn't have, and I get that you don't want to scare off everybody, but
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, this is what people need and I think that's what is so damning about the pandemic is people are isolated and then
Hmm.
they don't know how to seek help. And even if it's not from professionals,
Hmm.
I am so thankful for my friends. As much as my family has been very good to me, my friends have seen my really bad side and they've seen
Hmm.
me, puking my guts out after drinking too much and crying about not being where I want to be in life. They've seen some ugliness, but they've also seen some great sides. And if
Yeah.
I didn't have those buddies to call upon and say, I'm stressed, man, I don't know what to do, I'm having panic attacks, I'm sweating in the middle of the night, have you don't need to have that with all your friend groups. There can be certain tiers. There's the people that you go out with, the people that you go to church with, the people that you call no matter what. Sure, whatever tier system you have, that's great. But as long as you have 4 or 5 people that you can always call and tell them anything, that's what's so important, to have that long
Yes.
conversation, to I metaphorically and sometimes and in all actuality talk you off the ledge. you know
Yeah.
it's so important to have. And I think that's what's so weird about the human experiences is sometimes you can get that experience in the bar, or and I hate to keep using the bar as an analogy, but it's such a very good, a lot of people can relate to it. Let's say you
Yeah.
go alone and you're having a drink and you just talk to a stranger and you end up talking to the stranger for 3 hours, and at
Yeah.
some point you'll be like, I don't even know why I'm telling you this. It's because that person has been so gracious to allow you to spill your guts to them. And
Right.
how special is that to get that from a stranger? But then think about how special it is to have somebody that you've had in your life. You know, we're almost 30. Geez. But
Hmm.
imagine having, me and you being friends. I hope we remain friends till we're in our, 90s or whatever. We'll have all this
100%, brother.
backlog of stuff that we've been through, and it'll just mean so much more than, sure, it'd be great if I talked to some gorgeous lady about, all my trauma, but I'd rather talk about it with Andre, because Andre knows my
Yeah.
origin story. He knows that I was
Yeah.
just some punk Catholic school kid who, was driving too fast down country roads, and now he
Hmm.
sees me as,
Yeah,
as who
brother.
I've always been. And
For
likewise,
sure.
it's all about the
Yeah.
maturation process. It's beautiful.
I'm very proud of your growth, brother. And
Oh geez,
no
yeah.
matter how many years we went without talking or seeing each other, and then to reconnect again, it's like, we never
Yeah.
left each other's side, like we hit it off, like, we were buddies in high school again, like,
Yeah.
like, and that's the magic of life, man, is like,
Right.
when you can go that long without seeing someone, and it's like you just seen them for the first time again. And it's like you didn't miss a beat, and you can just talk for hours, and it's like, oh, we're not so different, or
No.
we might not hang out every day, and who does anymore? Like, who has time? Like, we got
Right.
responsibilities and priorities and all that stuff. But you know call a old buddy you haven't talked to in a while, or family member, whatever, and say, how are you doing, man? Like,
Yeah.
you never know, like, where they could be at in life, where that call could have saved their life, if not
Exactly.
saved their life, just picked them up, when
Right.
they were feeling down, or like, just kind of pulled them out of the dark cloud they were sitting in that day, like,
Exactly.
little things like that makes such a big difference, man. And like,
Hmm.
it all plays a role, man. And like, that's just putting good out into the universe. Like,
Exactly.
and all the good you put out, man, will come back to you. Best believe that. At least I believe that. And I believe, like, everything you do, matters. Like,
Oh, for sure.
not like, we're not insignificant. I mean, we may feel like we don't matter, like we're such a little small speck in this gigantic multiverse, but at the end of the day, man, everything we do matters, man, and I truly
Right.
believe that.
Yeah.
And
You
like,
might
we
not
are
be.
special.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And, you might not be much to the world, but you might be the world to somebody.
Yeah.
All that corny stuff. And even like you said about calling it, my grandfather passed away in about 2014, and that was one of the most powerful experiences of my life. And he would call me just out of the blue, and I remember being like, "Man, why is Grandpa calling me right now? I don't want to talk to him." And now, Andre, you know how much I just would love to hear his voice on the
Yes.
phone. And I think about that and I alluded to my mom about how, I love her to death, but she annoys the hell out of me. I pick up whenever my mom calls. I pick up the phone now, even if it's
Yeah.
even if I'm on the phone and I'm like, you just wanted to call, you have nothing to say, huh? And she's like, yeah. But I appreciate that, because one day you
Yeah.
will not have that, and there
Yeah.
are friends who are still alive, and like you said, I can't find a good time to talk to them or send them a message, and at least they'll respond. you know
Right.
don't be afraid to say I'm too busy, because that's better than me assuming like this guy doesn't give a shit about me. Just
Hmm.
say like, hey, I'm so sorry I can't talk right now, or I'm really busy. Be gracious. Just communicate. Communication at any level, work, school, relationship, let people know, because if you don't let people know, they assume, and generally they will assume the worst, because you've kind of let them on the hook for so long. They might be nice, like, oh, he's busy, or she must be doing something. Well, now I'm just like, well, she hasn't called me back in like 4 days. So now I'm just thinking like she doesn't like me anymore. Then the anxiety wheels start
Oh yeah.
spinning. Oh my God, the overthinking. So no,
Oh yeah.
communication at any level can really
So
mean a
important.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And
And it's
like,
easy.
boundaries too, like, have
That too.
some self-respect too. Like, don't
Right.
bend over backwards for people, like, no, like, yeah, don't be afraid to give, but at the same time, like, take some time for yourself as well. Like, don't exhaust yourself and all your energy
Hmm.
always on other people, being a people pleaser. I struggle
Right.
with that a lot. And don't be
Hmm.
afraid to have a 5-minute guided meditation, or take a nice bath, do something you like doing, open that new book you want to read, whatever it is,
Hmm.
just find that quiet time with yourself when you need it most, because if we're always pleasing others, like, we're left with nothing sometimes. And
Yes.
it's a tightrope to walk, man. You got to find the balance there, and that comes with trials and tribulations, and just life experiences, learning where you went wrong in the past, and building upon that. And yeah, man, I completely agree. Um so I had some questions written down here. We've already gone over an hour. I don't know how long you're wanting to go. I mean,
Well, I'll
you
be
want
here
to keep
as
going?
long as you want me.
Okay,
Sure.
okay.
I mean, I think we're having a good talk.
Awesome. Yeah, this is going great. And so, do therapists working in this field all have their own okay, let me reword that. So, do you believe therapists working in this field should all have their own psychedelic experiences themselves to conduct um, psychedelic journeys, like in a controlled setting?
So should the therapist be experienced with the substance while the client is under the influence of the substance? Yes.
Yeah, should they
Um,
have prior experience? Yep. In
that's a
your
great
opinion.
question. That's what I run into a lot. And that's why I try to be a little guarded at first, even though I admitted on the podcast that I take these substances. Um,
Right.
if you want to do it, if you as in you want to be a therapist who does these guided meditations or these guided journeys or therapeutic settings, I don't think it would hurt because you, and I think when I first did kind of a debriefing about your ayahuasca trip, I think you kind of
Mhm.
brought that up as well. And I can't remember what we said, but I think you should have some experiences. Even with a microdose, you should know what your client is getting into.
Right.
And I don't think now, I guess to play devil's advocate, if I'm properly trained and I have a lot of education, do I need to take the substances? One might argue, no, I'm already fully understanding. But then again, think about it. If you if you were a horse trainer
Right.
and you never rode a horse, wouldn't
Right.
that seem, would you trust a guy? Or if
No.
you were, would you strap yourself to a person who was doing a bungee cord or skydiving? I actually never done this before. I've watched thousands of hours of videos. I'm
Right.
certified. I've done lots of trainings, but I've never done it. I don't
I don't
know.
know.
I
Yeah.
don't know, man. And especially, let's say you were the client and you had, you know, psychologist A, me, and then psychologist B, um, her, and she had experiences, a full extensive background. She even told you about bad trips she's had. And I told you, like, no, I haven't had anything, but I've had all the training. As you as a client, you'd probably go with her. You know what I mean? Just
Right.
because, and the thing that I find so interesting about, my heroes, quote unquote, uh, Alan Watts died of alcoholism. Hunter S.
Hmm.
Thompson shot himself after years of drug abuse. I
Right.
just saw the Anthony Bourdain movie where he was addicted to heroin for all those years and also ended up taking his own life. There's something to be said about those heroes or idols that were that had that dark shadow that you alluded to as well.
Yeah.
And I use this line with so many people. The only one, from Hunter S. Thompson, the only people who know about the edge are the ones that have gone over it. And
Yeah.
I think because I have had those experiences, I think that makes me better able to handle the situation personally. Now,
For sure.
I don't have my master's degree yet. I'll be graduating from the University of Nebraska Lincoln in December. So as I go further along it, maybe my opinion will change. But
Hmm.
as currently as I can tell you, based on your question, I would say that one experience. I'm not saying you need to be fully integrated into all the substances and have all
Right.
own individual experiences. But for example, I specifically would like to do psilocybin and MDMA. Now, of course, I've had those experiences recreationally. I would like to have them in therapeutic setting as well,
Hmm.
to be more well-rounded. Because I'm not going to say I'm going to base off my whole education or my ability to serve people based off of MDMA experience I had at Millennium or Pretty Lights or Odessa.
Right.
I'm going to base it off of actual clinical settings that I'll later take
Yeah.
at the institute that I'll be studying to get my master's degree. So I would, that's what I would say. It's going to make me more rounded. I'm going to be well prepared if you're going to have a serious, and
For sure.
just think about it. If I had all the psychology background and I can pull from my experience of these substances that I'm trying to heal you with, I
Oh,
feel that
sky's the limit.
you're going to have a lot better turnout, a lot better results, and
More
hopefully
tools in your tool belt.
I mean, I don't understand why. I'd love to hear an opposing view.
Right. Right.
Not to
And
not to say that not to say like show me what you got. I would just be like, well, please inform me.
right. Yeah. No, I'm on the same page with that. I just wanted to get your opinion. And,
Sure.
I just think it's, empathizing with people and knowing,
Yeah.
what those waters are like, it's like, if they're going through a very rough experience, some past trauma comes up and, they're just thinking back on, oh, what did I learn in psychology regarding this? Sometimes that doesn't really apply. Like
Flipping through the pages
sometimes,
of the book
yeah,
real quick. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like you got to have some direct experience there, and I feel like that plays a role as well, and it can come in, tremendously important.
Yeah. I mean, and
Guiding someone through that.
Oh, most definitely. And the biggest thing that I've come to not be afraid of, but take seriously, is I imagine that I'll probably come in contact with victims of, sexual assault. And I have, fortunately, I have never had an experience like that. And that's the biggest
Right.
thing that I talk to my professors is, I how am I going to, and that's why I'm still being educated, of course. I'm not out in the
Right.
field yet, but that's one of the things that I haven't experienced is, so how am I going to empathize with this person who has had this, you know, traumatic experience that I have no personal knowledge about or experience about. And I mean that's the difficulty of it. At the same time, that's the journey, is to,
Right.
well, what do you know about this, Alex? How can you help me? Well, because of my training and my empathy, hopefully I'm prepared for that. And then of course, it might be different in a therapeutic setting, but never feel like you're alone in the world. As we talked about, have friends,
Yeah.
also have colleagues. Some people call them teachers, some people call them gurus or masters. Have somebody
Right.
you can rely on. And that's what's so important about getting an education, is the education is one thing, but the network you build. you know
Yes.
Call an old professor
100%.
saying, like, I'm dealing with this client, I'm not sure what to do, or I have a situation. Like, build a good network of people to surround yourself, because to quote my grandfather, who I miss so much, that no man is an island. You're never
Mhm.
alone. Even if
Yes.
you think you're alone, you're not really.
I love it. I love it, brother. And rest in peace to your grandpa. Um, and uh, so our current state of mental health is a complete mess.
Sure.
And what got us here? Is addiction a disease in your opinion? And are you familiar with Gabor Mate's work on addiction stemming from trauma?
I'm not familiar with that.
Okay.
Could you enlighten me in any way, or?
Yeah, so Gabor Mate is a famous psychologist up in Canada,
Mhm.
and we actually had to watch his videos or a lecture he gave on, how childhood trauma and just trauma throughout life kind of
Mhm.
creates a dependence on substances and leads way to addiction because
Sure.
it like creates this void within us that we're trying to fill, and it's very compelling stuff, and I highly recommend looking into it. But
Mhm.
I had seen him in some documentaries, mainly around psychedelics because he's heavily referred to in those communities.
Mhm.
And, just seeing him before drinking ayahuasca for the first time like set the precedent, it really like helped as far as like understanding, as these things come up and, why we are the way that we are and like why we have these behaviors. Like there's so
Mhm.
much that builds upon like what got us here as far as like, why do I smoke a pack of cigarettes a day or drink a
Mhm.
bottle a night, whatever it is? Why
Sure.
do I watch endless hours of CNN every night or,
Mhm.
you
Everyone
know,
has a vice.
yeah,
Everyone has one.
I
Yep.
mean, everyone, too much exercise, like it could be
Mhm.
anything,
Anything.
sleeping all day. Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, we see things as drugs that aren't necessarily drugs, like they can come in many forms.
Oh,
And
sure.
you know yeah, I'll just give you the mic from there.
Well, I mean, from my understanding of my education, a drug is any kind of substance which has a chemical change to your body. So think about it, even something outside that you don't intake, television, as you alluded to, that still has a chemical change in your body. Your body will produce dopamine or serotonin because of the pleasurable experience due to the disassociation from whatever situation you're dealing with. Your girlfriend just
Yeah.
broke up with you, you're going to watch a movie marathon, for example. I think we got here because, I watched something as mundane as a shoe spiracy, not seaspiracy, shoe spiracy, and it talked about how in within the last 30,000 years we started making shoes.
Yeah.
And when we first started, they were sandals, so they weren't like the Jordans that we wear today. And the reason that we have insoles, the reason we have back problems, knee problems, we have
Yeah.
uptick in chiropractic and massage therapy, is because we are wearing fucking shoes that we're not supposed to be wearing.
Yeah.
So what has happened is there's a dramatic change in what it means to be a human. We went from hunting on the savannah to hunter gathering, to building nests, to being the main focus of catching fish, to making sure we arrive at work on time after drinking 40 grams of sugar in our Starbucks frappe, no shame against Starbucks or whoever, or your
Right.
Monster Energy or your Red Bull, to eating a microwave lunch, to eating a microwave dinner, to watching, cable news TV for 6 hours before bed. Do you see what I just described to you? You've had a dramatic change from the hominids 10,000 years
Yeah.
ago to your common man now going to his desk job or being a student teacher, being a police officer, anything. So that's how he got there. How we get out of it, I have no idea, Andre. I mean, really, like I said,
Right.
I don't even think if you gave everybody LSD and gave them an integrated experience, you would break down so many societal structures that I really don't know what we'd have left. We'd have that
Right.
hopefully we would have that utopian ideology of, you know, my friend Molly sent me a Facebook message that said, we could all be in a field eating fruit painting if everyone just relaxed, but we can't do that because of
Yeah.
the way everything is set up. And
Yeah.
the way everything is set up is there's the powerful and the people who are not powerful. And whether or not
Mhm.
you believe like I'm a free person, I can do whatever I want. Well, you can't get your own clean water very easily. You can't even burn your own trash, which I know isn't very helpful to the environment, but
Right.
the city that I live in, there's no recycling. So I have to go
Mm.
out of my own way to fucking recycle.
Right.
So this whole machine that exists, the way that our society works currently, at least here in the West, is detrimental to your mental health, I would say. Now, of course,
100%.
we can take small pieces. You can work an 8-hour job, sure. And after you get off work, you can take a bath. I love baths. I promote baths, Epsom salt or bath bombs, treat
Right.
yourself because that's easy. But I work out like a hound. I try to eat the best I can. I have a dog. I have good friendships. I try to go outside and do concerts and stuff. Um, but I still even struggle with anxiety and stress. And I might work just 6 hours a day, or I might do schoolwork for 3 hours a day. So we got here because of the way the system exists now currently. And unless people come to realize that we are so much more than a paycheck and we are so much more than a fast car that we can barely afford to get, we will continue down this this monotony of life. And really, Andre, what's going to happen is the ocean levels are going to rise, and those island nations or those people on the coast are going to butt heads with people on the inland, and there's going to be a struggle for resources. And
Oh
then
yeah.
I really don't know what we're going to do. And I hate to, as we're getting to the tail end of this, be so kind of dark, but that's the reality of the situation. So the
Mhm.
best thing that I can say is remain hopeful. And if you want to have a family, do the best you can. Just don't become greedy, and just be aware in the back of your mind that we are one natural disaster away from everything going to shit. And so
Yeah.
take that with a grain of salt. Don't be nihilistic and don't start pushing old ladies in the street, spitting on kids. You know, be the light. Share your light with
Yes.
others, because the light that you shine on others is generally reflected back onto you. Now,
Hmm.
that's the same thing. If you want to be a piece of shit, you're most likely going to run into shitty people in city situations.
Yeah.
So you really create your own reality. We are all subjected to the our things that happen on our planet because they're out of our control. Whether or not the industrial revolution caused this to happen fastly is quote unquote debatable, but I mean, come on. But this is probably going to happen anyway, because no species has ever dominated the world for any, the dinosaurs even died out and they ruled the earth with no problems.
Right.
So, you know, to get back to your original question, um, people just need to wake up and realize
Yeah.
that we're so much more than what we are. And the only ones holding ourselves back are ourselves,
100%, man. We are our own worst enemies. And, you know, I,
honestly.
I I feel like, no matter what we fear about what the future holds, that only empowers us more to be more present, not
Right.
take life for granted, treat other people how we want to be treated. pick someone up when they're feeling down, give them a pat on the back to, push them a little harder,
Yep.
just make them feel good about themselves when they're not feeling so good about themselves. And,
Hmm.
all that stuff plays a role, man. And like, what do we have to gain from like looking at life through this pessimistic, dark and doom and gloomy view?
Right.
Like we have nothing. So why not have a little hope?
Hmm.
Love yourself so you can love other people, and just be a good person, man.
Right.
Life's too short not to be. And I think we better end it on this positive note, because this has been such a great conversation, brother. And I loved all the peaks and valleys we had throughout it, man.
Mm.
It's been great. And I can't thank you enough for coming on. And, it's been a pleasure having you.
Sure. I thank you so much. The last thing I'll say is, if you have enough water and you spill some of that water on other people's flowers, there's no badness that can come out of that.
No.
Even if you didn't mean to do it, it still created more positive than negative. So, yep, give a stranger a smile, buy a person a sandwich, just small things.
I love it. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. And I hope you have a good week. Peace and love. Thank you.